Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
He slimed me.
That's great!
Oh, good evening and welcome to another edition of The Final Cut. I am your host, The Movie Man, and we're back for another year of what I hope to be some great shows. This summer I went to a lot of movies and I saw a few decent ones and some that didn't quite agree with me, such as Batman Forever, which by itself was a good film, but on the whole, it could have been better. There are some films this summer that kind of got hidden in the shuffle. They got kind of lost their way with all the big hype of such movies as Judge Dredd and Waterworld. The one movie that I'd like to discuss to you today is the movie of Crimson Tide. It was produced by Bruckheimer and Simpson. These guys were the ones that brought us such movies as Top Gun, Flashdance, and Beverly Hills Cop. And now they've returned with a movie in the spirit of such classics as The Hunt for Red October. The movie is called Crimson Tide, and it stars Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington as two officers on the USS submarine Alabama. Now, Gene Hackman's character plays the old warhorse who is strict by the duty, top of the line, just go by the book captain. But he also has had a lot of experience, so he feels that he's a lot better than the wet behind the ears lieutenant commander played by Denzel Washington. The two have this conflict of chain of command, and it kind of brings attention to the whole crew. Meanwhile, the tension builds in the world around them as the world goes on an all-out alert for World War III. The rogue Russian politician who has taken over the USSR, and he threatens to blow up the US. The last command the submarine gets before communications are cut off is to launch their missiles. And here's where the conflict comes. For Denzel Washington has the message in his hand, and he notices that the message isn't completed. So they are unsure whether or not to launch their missiles or to hold off and wait till the communication is reestablished. You have the warhorse, who he figures the command is from the commander-in-chief, and therefore they should launch their missiles, for they are totally shut off from the rest of the world. The conflict between these two are great, and it's a good example of this is in our next clip. And that's just one example of one of the great conflict scenes throughout this film. Denzel Washington, who we remember from Philadelphia, does an excellent performance. He does a great job at playing the wet behind the ears, fresh out of the academy, somewhat experienced lieutenant commander. And Gene Hackman also just does a beautiful job. We know him from doing his roles from Superman as the arch villain of Superman, Lex Luthor. Both actors play off each other very well, and throughout the film, the banter back and forth and the way they just exchange dialogue, and they heighten the tension in the theater. I could feel it around the room when I watched it, and I noticed the people around us, and they were very interested in this film. This film will grab you, it'll suck you in, and it'll keep you on the edge, wondering who exactly is right. For even though with all the beeps and whistles of this technological movie, there are a lot of philosophical ideas that are brought up in this film. I give this film an A-. The acting was beautiful. The writing was very well done, I have to admit. It definitely brought back the submarine films, and I think if we could get more writers like the ones that wrote this film, it would bring back the old submarine films like The Hunt for Red October. Next up comes another movie by Simpson and Bruckheimer, Dangerous Minds, when we return.
You're watching SVO, Student Video Operations, Cable Channel 10.
They've
given our generation a label. X. Generation Nothing. They say we have no sense of purpose. They say we have no war to fight and no cause to believe in. Who are they? Join the thousands of us who are making a difference and wear a label that does mean something.
Smokey says only you can prevent forest fires, and it's true. We know we can count on you to do what Smokey says.
Never leave a campfire unattended, not even for a minute. Make sure there's plenty of water and a shovel handy.
We know we can count on you to do what Smokey says.
Remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
So there's this talk on the campus about this great film over at Campus Theaters just across the street from UWSP. It was called Dangerous Minds, and I had heard from at least half a dozen of my friends that saying, this is an awesome film, you should see it. So I took their advice and I went, and I found that they were absolutely right. Dangerous Minds is a movie about this ex-Marine who decides to leave her career and become a school teacher because it was her lifelong dream. The Marine is played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and she's come a long way since her Catwoman days. This is a very mature role for her. This class that she has to go up against are a class of special children, as the system would put it. They're children with very high IQs, but low test scores, low grades. Basically, society has given up on these kids, but the Marine decides to change all that. In this first clip that we'll see Michelle Pfeiffer's character taking control of the class and telling them that they do have a choice, regardless of what society says. Let's take a look. And what makes this movie, I feel, really powerful is that it was based on a true story. This was an actual teacher who went up against these unbeatable odds. Yet she found some way to get past them and through to the kids to show that someone out there does care and that they do have a choice, which is the main theme throughout the film, that we all have a choice. This movie hits hard at the system, and I think that it just makes a great statement about today's society and how we handle education and how the students who aren't as great as the others, at least in some people's minds, get pushed to the back burner and forgotten about. I give this movie an A-. It's great stuff, and if you get a chance, run over to Campus Theaters before it's gone and check it out, because I feel you won't be disappointed by it. Now, when we return, I'll come back with a video review of one of my favorite films. It's dark, it's scary, it's The Crow. We'll be right back.
January. You go blind. March, you can see again, but you can't walk. August, you can walk again, but you can't hold your child. December, your hands are working, so you pray. Multiple sclerosis randomly attacks your nervous system. Help us find the answer. The National MS Society, one thing people with MS can count on.
Why don't you come up here, Pumpkin?
What are you doing, Larry?
Well, Vince, I've asked my pumpkin to sit on my lap to prove a point.
And what is that, your Larryness?
Even if we fasten our safety belts, even if you hold on tight, even if you were watching the road...
Yeah?
In a crash, your pumpkin will be nothing but a squash.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Use child safety seats.
We love that little pumpkin to pieces.
Math, a four-letter word, right? Hey, you don't need that.
Why design the world's newest chips?
When you could be flipping the world's oldest burgers. Hey, wait a minute. This is math. Geometry, algebra.
No pocket protectors here.
But you're cruising without math. Yeah, right. Take a good look.
That's math staring back at you.
It's not a problem, man. It's an answer. Call NACME. We'll tell you what you need to do.
Imagine, if you will, Batman, dark, scary figure in a very gothic town. Then take a movie such as Blade Runner, somewhat futuristic, dark as well, very high populated setting there. Throw them together, mix in a little martial arts, and what do you got? You got a very beautiful film, The Crow. Unfortunately, this was Brandon Lee's last film, and he died during the film, as we all know. But the work that he put into this film, it is a tribute to him. I gotta admit, he did an excellent job. Basically, he plays the character Eric Draven, who is basically killed in the first 5 minutes of the film. A year later, Eric comes back from the dead to haunt his killers and seek vengeance for his wrongful death and the rape and murder of his soon-to-be wife. The tone of this film is dark. I mean, I have yet to see a movie as dark and gothic and just freakish as this one. But at the same time, it also envelops you, and it just catches your imagination. It's jam-packed full of action, and it's not quite for the squeamish, for it is a very violent film. This first clip that I show you is where Brandon Lee's character, the Crow, meets up with Ernie Hudson, who plays the cop that helped investigate Eric Draven's original case. The two end up meeting up here again just after the Crow has completely demolished some guy's building. Let's see what happens. Well, this mime from hell kicks some major tail through the whole film, considering he can't die. His character would be best described by, in my words, as Batman thrown together with Highlander mixed in with a little bit of the Joker. It's a strange, demented character who is just acting on vengeance and is back for one thing: revenge. This film was terrifically done, and visually, although it's not bright and colorful as like a lot of films are, and even Batman Forever, which was lightened up a lot, you still get a lot of detail, and it's amazing how they do it. Now, you may be wondering how they were able to finish the film, though Brandon Lee ended. Well, they were able to take computers and digitally master his face from frames that they had taken during the film, and they put it over a body double, just the face, and that was enough. The film was beautifully done, and I suggest that if you're bored one night, or if you haven't picked it up yet at your local video store, run over to Randy's and pick it up, for it's a great film, it's entertaining, and if you like a dark film, it's definitely up your alley. That's why I give this movie a B+. Speaking of digitally remastered films, next up is a trilogy which is a favorite of mine and a favorite of a lot of people's. Revisit it when we return.
It's only a little motor oil.
What difference is one drop of paint going to make?
This much fertilizer isn't going to pollute anything.
You're looking at a sea of excuses, created drop by people like you and me. Our waters can be saved if each of us does their part. Drop by drop. If we all do a little, we can do a lot. Brought to you by the Natural Resources Defense Council, the EPA, and the Ad Councils of the U.S. and Japan.
Thousands of women will lose a child to AIDS simply because they didn't get an HIV test when they were pregnant. You see, there's now treatment that can help stop the spread of HIV from mother to baby, which gives children of HIV-infected mothers something they never had before: a chance. If you're pregnant, please get an HIV test.
Let's have a moment of silence for the 35,000 children who die each day. Not just from war, natural disaster, or famine, but from illnesses that cost pennies to cure and pennies to prevent. In 140 countries, UNICEF leads the battle to save children. With your help, we can win it. UNICEF, because every child is our child.
course, the trilogy I was talking about was none other than the Star Wars trilogy, brought to you by George Lucas. Remastered and brought to you for one final time onto videos. If you haven't picked it up already, I suggest you go out and get it right away because after Christmas, it's gone. And for those of you concerned, no, my ugly face does not show up halfway through the Star Wars film, so you can rest assured that I won't be in the film. That'll about wrap it up for us here at the Final Cut. I hope you enjoyed the show. To recap, Crimson Tide, starring Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. Beautiful film, an A- in my book, and I suggest that when it comes out in videotape, you pick it up. Dangerous Minds, you better run over to Campus Cinemas before it's gone. It's an excellent film, and I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it. And don't forget, on video, The Crow. Pick it up right away. If you haven't bought it, rent it. If you haven't rented it, well then, you're just missing out on a wonderfully dark movie. And finally, the remastered Star Wars trilogy. Always classics, never get enough of them, and you have to go out and get them. Until next time, I suggest that you stay cool, and remember when the lights go down and the curtain goes up, the guy in the front row you see may be me. Till next time, keep your ticket stub. So long.